So I'm scrolling TikTok today and noticed that Dave Ramsey's trending. I'd seen a couple videos prior where people were talking about how he's kind of out of touch and stuff, but there's going to be a lot more videos now where people are commenting on what he's saying. And I even saw one say that they're starting to think that the people that call in are now plants, like it's all something pre-planned for his show and it's not actually real people calling in anymore. I can agree and disagree with that, and I'm not pro Dave Ramsey. So to give you guys some insight, I used to work a job that was fairly far away from where I live. Like my commute was an hour and a half one way. So in addition to the 8 to 10 hour shift I worked, I also had to add drive time on top of that. Sometimes it was worse if I had to work further out in the state. I live in Colorado. The position I worked was in Denver, and I had to commute an hour and a half there. And then sometimes to start my job, I had to be at one of the sites that we had that we maintained for IT. So I could be in like Boulder, and I had to commute. I didn't plan on moving to Denver. The job didn't pay enough to let me live in Denver, and I hate Denver. I'm not a fan of Denver at all. Sorry. Too busy. It's too pretentious. Just not for me. If you love Denver, good on you. Just not a place for me. I visit occasionally. I try to avoid it if I can. The traffic is just not worth it. If there was a train that went there, and I'm really hopeful that the new plans to bring a train to Colorado happen, I'd probably take a train there and enjoy things more. But anyway, because that commute was so long, and to be fair, it shouldn't take probably about 45 minutes to get to Denver from where I'm at, but the traffic and the accidents that happen make it much worse. Now, my average drive time one way was an hour and a half. It could be 2 hours, 2.5 hours, depending. If you've made that drive, you know, if you're going from the southern portion of the state to the north portion of the state, or from southern portion of the state to Denver, you know that trip. Anyway, that means you have a lot of time to listen to audiobooks, and I listen to a lot of audiobooks, and I happened to get my hands on a copy of Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University. Most of what you were going to hear in advice given, clips you're going to see from Dave Ramsey, they're either going to be his radio show, or it's going to be the FPU, the Financial Peace University. And the Financial Peace University is heavily what influenced the radio show. He's had some other comments, but people calling him basically he just regurgitates the same crap that he puts in his live shows. Now, the FPU audiobook that I listened to, I think was like 10 discs or something like that. It was fairly long, and it's basically one of the things you would pay to go see. You would go to where he's at, and he would talk to the crowd. He provides some kind of spreadsheet to you for financial planning, all this different stuff, and then explains to you, you know, why it is you broke. And now what I've noticed is listening to that, which was a fairly older recording, his attitudes have kind of adjusted a bit to be more worse. Now, there's a phrase that I hate because it's right, and that's that a broken clock is right twice a day. And I hate that because for me, it's even the most wrong person is right at least part of the time. And I hate that because it gives a wrong person validity. That's why I hate that. But to give credit where credit's due, if you were to listen to the FPU, I recommend you find someone who often travels the high seas and see if they can net that out of the fresh waters for you. And listen to it in its entirety and understand what's there. Now, he has a slightly Christian slant in some of the things he says, but for me, it's palatable, right? I don't mind someone professing certain Christian things within their speech if it goes with the flow of what they're writing. And his kind of does. I'm going to say it kind of does. Now, there's other practices that he's known for, and if you don't know, I'll be glad to tell you here, but there's other practices he's known for that I do not agree with, and that's why I don't support the man. That's why I would not willingly purchase a product of his. But anyway, in listening to the entirety of what he had to say, a lot of it is sound advice. That being said, it's sound advice if you're just really, really badly financially irresponsible, or if you're living in the 1940s and 50s. His advice stems from things that worked for him at the time, and he'll admit, he does multiple times, that he owned property for rental, and he was bad at it, so it failed. But he also lived at a time where they could fail at that, and then pick themselves right back up. He did. He owned rental property. He expresses that in the FPU. I'm not sure which version you'll have to listen to. I'll try to find the date for mine if I even still have it, because I think I just got rid of it after I learned all the different things I did about him. But yeah, he owned rental property, and then him and his partner, they were bad at it, and they were horrible at it. And I'm sure they were great landlords, but and so they wrecked that, and it was just awful for them. And they did various other business ventures that failed, and surprise, surprise, he is now giving financial advice. So if you don't understand what I'm getting at here for this portion, it's that he's doing what every financial YouTuber or TikToker does, right? They fail at actual business, but then regurgitate that advice as actual prominent advice, and then you pay them. They have a product they're selling, and you pay them. See, he doesn't make his money and doesn't live comfortably because he's good with finances. He makes it because the vast majority of Americans are in a tight spot and they're not necessarily bad at finances, but they will pay for a solution if it seems to work. He has a lot of financial backing from that. He's also got a lot of ways to write that money off because he's a business. That's nothing dirty necessarily. That's what all businesses do. If you own a business, you have expenses you can write off. I run a reselling business. I have expenses I can write off. Very minimal, but they're still there. The higher up you get, though, and what he does, the more you can write off and the more you can do. Now, to the comment that somebody made about the people calling the radio show being plants, they may not be. Honestly, there are people who need help and they're desperate for help, so they can call in. If a free phone call, and some of those phone calls are free, to his radio show may provide some insight, then they're going to do it and it's going to give him more content. Doesn't mean he's helping those people. And of course, you have the people that say, I did it, I'm debt free. Those might be plants. I don't know. We won't know that information. And I'm not here to say whether they are or not plants, but his advice is out of date. It's not going to work. You can't start a business. And as many have said, selling all your stuff and working a second job, it isn't enough. It's not going to be enough. And there's no point. And I want to touch on another point that's been made around the internet, whether you've heard it verbalized or not. I'll verbalize it here. Even if you decide to have a coffee every day of the week for 5 days of the week, it's not that much of an impact. Now, you have to make some choices in there, but it's really not. You're looking at, let's say the average cup of coffee you're getting, I go to Dutch Bros, so if we round up, it's going to be $7. So, yeah, you could argue that's a bit of money. But at the same time, if you're working a full-time job and that's the only joy you have in anything, then it's really not that bad. There are much worse habits. Also, that's probably not going to be a bill you're missing. If you're off by, $30, $40 on a bill, there's other solutions besides cutting that out. Maybe you should, maybe you shouldn't. That's up to you. But this idea, if you just live with nothing, you'll prosper financially is not the case, because the more that people do that, they get stuck in a position of enjoying nothing and having nothing. Also, quit feeling bad for buying a TV because you want something newer. If you're spending, a couple $100 on a TV and you've saved for it, you deserve that. You should enjoy it. You should have it. Nobody likes living miserably and without stuff. For the most part, though, people aren't spending on coffees or on TVs. They're spending on things like food and clothing, things they need. Or gas for their car. Can't really cut that out. There's no transportation system for people anywhere, but it is worth listening to what he has to say. If you have the time to listen to, I said 10 disc, I think it was like a 5-disc, 10-hour course is what it was, something like that. But if you have the time and can find somebody who can locate it for you, you can get it from a library or something, I recommend you listen to audiobook. Don't read the books. His books are highly curated, which means they're highly edited to be more palatable. It's the audio portion that he does of the Financial Peace University that's very uncut because it's recorded from one of his live seminars. You're going to find more information about him and his attitudes in those than you are in the books, because the books are edited down to a point that are more negotiable for the populace as a whole. So, have you listened to the FPU? Are you listening to Dave Ramsey currently? Is there any advice that you think doesn't make sense? What are you doing to try to make ends meet at this point? And what are your thoughts on the whole Dave Ramsey situation? And are you aware of some of the other attitudes he holds with his business that have affected people that work for him?